In my experience, the bigger the problems that I've been able to solve, the more value I've been able to create into the world. And this isn't just about solving problems. I see it mainly as solving two different types of problems. There are problems that are perceived to be as valuable as they are, but aren't really as valuable. And then there are the big valuable problems to solve. And for me, I personally, over the past couple of years, have been working on different projects and problems that haven't been yielding me the same results as what I had thought. So I was working in the first type of problems, which aren't as valuable as I thought they were. And this led me to believe, why aren't things working out the way that I have envisioned for myself? Because I thought in my life that I was sorting out or solving the problems that are big problems and creating a large amount of value for the people that I'm working with. And realizing this really shifted everything and shifted my perspective in terms of understanding the types of problems that I have been able to solve. And once I detached from solving smaller problems, or I perceived to be as valuable as they could be, but weren't really as valuable, that's when I shifted to now solving big problems, which has shifted everything for me. And I think it's so important to understand what type of problem you are solving, especially if you have really big goals and really big visions that you want to create, not only for yourself, but the people that you're working with, and also enabling yourself to play at the highest level. And in order to do this, once I realized this shift, that the problems I was solving weren't as big as I thought they were, that's when everything changed for me. Because maybe call it limiting beliefs, call it what you will, but the problems that I perceived to be big weren't really that big. And once I realized that, that's when I shifted to now solving big problems, which now increased the value that I could create into the world. But there is one big thing that I did realize from this, and this is, if you're gonna solve really difficult big problems that solve core issues in businesses and into the world, you need to constantly understand this one thing. And this is always being a student of the game. You need to constantly learn every single moving part of the business and every single moving part in order for you to have as much resource in terms of knowledge available so that you're constantly improving. If you're definitely gonna say, I'm gonna be solving the most difficult problems, whether it's like launching rockets or like solving world hunger, those really difficult problems, if you dedicate your time and your energy to say, I'm gonna solve the hardest challenges into the world, and you pick that, that also means that you need to understand that you need to constantly be learning, you need to constantly be improving in every aspect of your life, because the people that are able to solve those problems are the ones that have the most amount of knowledge within that specific problems and understand the moving parts and are masters at that specific avenue or area. And this also pushes you, as it has done for me. It's pushed me to say, okay, if I'm going to be solving the most difficult problems, whether it's building a website or it's generating businesses, solving their systems, and really understanding that is what I want to solve for businesses and what level stage that they're at, and I want them to be at the higher stage after they've worked with me, I need to be the best in that specific area. If I'm going to deliver the results that actually solve their problems, I need to understand all of their core issues and everything that comes with that specific business. And that's where the framework of first principles thinking, asking questions until you get to the root fundamental truth, and then reasoning up from there. And understanding this really allows you to understand the core problem and solve the core issue. And to do this, you need as much knowledge as you possibly can get, because if you don't have the right adequate amount of problems, you won't have the full grasp of understanding their core issue that they have. And this will also allow you to not solve it as much as you possibly could be and should be. But yeah, basically understanding, for me, what I've had to understand is, if I'm going to solve the biggest problems that are happening in businesses and across the globe or in the world, I need to be the person that constantly improves and learns in every aspect of my life, so that I can be the best. I can be the go-to person in order to solve those difficult problems. Because the more the more valuable you become, the more value you can put into the world. And this is the number one rule that I always implement in my life going forward, ever since I realized that the problems I was solving were not big enough relative to what I wanted to achieve. That's when I realized that I need to constantly be learning and improving and becoming more valuable, because the more valuable you are, the more value you can create into the world. And with that comes solving bigger problems that actually have core issues within businesses and across the world. If you really, really want to take on the biggest problems, you need to constantly always be on your game in terms of learning and in terms of seeking advice and paying and investing into yourself. The number one thing as a business owner or whatever you're doing in your life, if you want to solve really big problems, you need to constantly invest into yourself. Because if you don't invest into yourself, how are you going to be able to be the go-to person that has the updated information as to what's going on in terms of market trends, in terms of how customer psychology is moving? Because those things are always changing. But if you're not constantly learning, you're going to be using a formula or an outdated system that doesn't necessarily work in this day and age. And this means that you need to constantly improve who you are and constantly make yourself more valuable, whether it's through books, courses, or just speaking to other people that are playing at the similar level or even higher, preferably even higher, because then you have a different perspective as to what their framework for thinking is when it comes to solving problems. And this has to be the number one thing that I want to carry on for the rest of my life, and what I want to continue to implement for me and my team, which is solving really big problems, but also being able and being valuable enough, or having the amount of knowledge to be able to solve those problems, and constantly becoming a student of the game and understanding that the learning never stops. You just have to keep learning, and you just have to keep constantly pushing the needle of what's possible, and also using first principles framework for thinking about how to solve these problems. Because if you want to play at a different level, which is solving these big challenges and problems for businesses and across the world, you need to be able to understand from the fundamental root and build up your reasoning from that. And with that has been the number one thing that I've implemented in my life and will continue to implement as I'm going forward. And this is what's allowed me to always push the needle and understand that who I am, if I'm going to be able to solve the biggest problems, the problems that I want to solve in the world and for businesses, I need to be as valuable as I possibly can be, which means reading a lot, understanding also like different aspects, and always being a student of the game, because being a student of the game never stops. And once I understood this, that's allowed me to 10x, 20x my output and what I've been able to create into the world. The only thing that I am currently focused on is being insanely obsessed with creating value. I would rather go to sleep thinking about how can I create the most amount of value, and asking myself questions as to how to go about certain things in terms of how to structure everything in my mind such that I can solve these problems. And I also think that in addition to that, having specific frameworks for solving problems that are easily transmittable in terms of like transmitting it from you to your team is also very important. And that's one thing that I want to carry on and continue to carry on and have been implementing in my business. And this also transcends into what I do on a daily basis in my personal life. And if you guys have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.